from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, one man who keeps the tradition of the map alive by making it about so much more than a bunch of roads.
Technology is good for getting you from point A to point B. I mean, it's convenient, but you miss the big picture.
Almond growers concerned about a new round of tariffs with India.
So when you think of these tariffs, that's hitting us in an important place.
And we continue our look at the hemp industry and about what grows between the rows.
We really got a lot to learn.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The 2018 Farm Bill opened the door for expanded production of industrial hemp. Leaders from Washington taking time during the holiday week to see for themselves. Now, this was the scene in Kentucky. Secretary of Ag Sonny Perdue, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and the Kentucky Commissioner of Agriculture get a tour of the University of Kentucky's hemp research and teaching farm. Now, Kentucky has been on the forefront of the industry, bulking up production, building processors, and allowing growers to have permits.
I want to applaud Leader McConnell for his leadership in Congress overall of moving this industrial product out of a controlled substance into a legal substance that can be commercialized and merchandised and used from producers and processors and the beneficiaries of using the product, both whether it's medicinal or whether it's industrial and components into that. It takes all of us, and a group asked me, what one thing can we do? That is, do what you're doing and to continue to build and to pioneer this industry over one hurdle after another.
McConnell helping get industrial hemp written into the latest farm bill. Now, Perdue says they're continuing to work toward full implementation. During the hemp tour, Secretary Perdue addressing the fact there are no federally labeled pesticides for hemp production, telling reporters he's hoping approval from EPA will arrive sooner than later. AgDay's Betsy Gibbon also visited Kentucky's hemp fields for a first-hand look at the challenges of production.
Hemp is continuing to grow in Winchester, Kentucky fields.
It's been a good planting season. It's just here in the recent weeks that we've been wet.
It's Brennan Gilkinson's 6th year in the business, but like many others, he's still learning what goes on between the rows.
This is the first time we've planted something that we've not been able to call somebody and get information on.
Even though some Kentucky growers have grown hemp for years, they're still learning on the agronomy side of things along with the rest of the industry.
In the U.S. at least, no one has done any research for at least 50 years with this crop, and so we really got a lot to learn.
Since the research is behind compared to other row crops, there are no federally labeled pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, or fungicides for industrial hemp, a top concern for the industry.
We need to see the EPA allow us to be able to put any kind of insecticides or fungicides, even some herbicides, on top of the hemp to help produce it better.
We're also dealing with some insect pressure, some disease pressure, although not as great as the weeds. So that's certainly our #1 issue.
The approval of different sprays could get complicated.
A lot of the hemp producers have a zero tolerance for any residual herbicides or pesticides in their final product.
That brings up the question whether there will be approvals, especially if it ends up being used for skin products or nutrition. Some researchers feel there's room for multiple markets someday.
I think there's that potential to be two product streams, one that would be perhaps zero tolerance or organic, and another one that would be more conventionally acceptable.
Researchers are also looking at the resilience of the crop. While studies are still underway, they suspect hemp is not fit for drift, especially dicamba drift.
Theoretically, hemp would be sensitive to dicamba.
I would think it'd be similar to crop damage he got with a non-dicamba tolerant soybean.
Don't invest any more than you can afford to lose.
Advice straight from Kenneth Anderson, far from a novice in the industry.
Without the tools, for the weed control, you're looking at a major catastrophe if you don't have the labor to do it with.
Because understanding what happens in between the rows takes tools and time, both on a tight schedule as the industry grows. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. There is no federal crop insurance for hemp farmers, yet there are some limited options with private companies, and the industry says it's high risk. If you're interested in hemp production, you're in luck. Farm Journal is hosting multiple events for potential growers to attend and learn more about the industry. Registration now open for the Iowa location. We saw China make U.S. ag buys earlier this month, and now the country could soon be buying more, possibly as a gesture of goodwill. That's according to Bloomberg. Its sources telling them, though, that the volume is likely to be smaller, but could include soybeans, corn, and pork. Dan Bossie of Ag Resource telling Bloomberg some Chinese buyers were asking about U.S. soybeans to be shipped out of the Pacific Northwest, but he says he hasn't heard of any sales yet. China and the U.S. agreeing at the G20 at the end of June to renew their trade talks. President Trump also agreeing not to impose new tariffs as the talks continued, and tweeting that China had agreed to purchase large amounts of U.S. ag product. Beside meeting with China, President Trump also meeting with his Indian counterpart at the G20. The meeting happening just as India imposed new retaliatory tariffs on U.S. products. Just last month, India imposed tariffs on almonds and 27 other American products, including apples and walnuts, in retaliation for the U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum. Now, those tariffs, which took effect on June 16th, come on top of significant tariffs that China has placed on almonds this last year. In California, almond growers are nervous about the uncertainty. California supplies 82% of the world's almonds and has almost 7,000 growers. The tariffs add about 12 cents per pound to shelled almonds, a 20% increase, and the hit from China tariffs was even bigger. The country imposed a 50% tariff on U.S. almonds. Now, according to the Almond Board, exports fell by about a third.
India tariffs were just put into place. Short term, we're not really looking at serious impacts because a lot of those contracts into India have already been signed, but really the concern becomes long term.
So with all those almonds, we have a lot of markets around the world that they go to, and the number one market is actually right here in the U.S. Around 30% of our almonds stay here for the U.S., but then after that, they're shipped around the world, and India is actually our number one export market right now. So when you think of these tariffs, that's hitting us in an important place.
Still, no one is panicking yet. California's exports of almonds to India is valued about $650 million. That's according to official records, but the state tallied $4.5 billion in foreign sales in 2017. The new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement appears to be gaining some traction in Congress. Senate Finance Committee Chairman, Republican Chuck Grassley, says while progress is slow, Democrats are warming to the idea of adding side agreements to the trade deal. Grassley saying Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is interested in adding position statements when it comes to the environment, labor, and enforcement of the trade agreement. Right now, Canada's parliament is in recess, but Grassley says he has been assured by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government that they have the necessary votes to pass it. Mexico was the first country to ratify the deal. You never know what you're going to find when you're out checking fields, and we're not talking about just what's growing, as meteorologist Mike Hoffman shows us in today's Crop Comments. Mike.
Thanks, Clinton. Just take a moment and watch this. Philip Gross says this video was taken in Alberta, Canada, and he posted it to Twitter. Just looks like he's taking a ride, checking out a field, right? But watch as the camera pans up this pole. Wait for it. Yep, perched on top of the pole is a bear. A spectacular view for sure for the bear. Not sure how it managed to get down. Hopefully the same way it got up there. Now we'll be taking a look at our forecast coming up in just a little while, but first here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
All right, we'll continue to dig into weather and the recent weather trends coming up in a special analysis. And later, if you're taking a summer road trip, it's not uncommon to grab a paper map along the way. We'll meet the man behind the fold today in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
As July rolls forward, weather will continue to be a major focus for markets given the late pace of planning. Tyne Morgan continues our weather conversation and analysis from our remote studios in Kansas City.
Here now with Drew Lerner of World Weather Incorporated. He's really been watching the weather this year, and this cooler than wetter pattern that we've been in this year. Do you think that budges the remainder of the summer, or do you think we just stay cooler and wetter than normal?
I'm afraid that we're going to see a lot more cool days still yet to come. This is coming up on a solar minimum year, and those tend to finish out the summer a little bit cooler biased. We'll have some warmer days coming up as well, but I just can't get too excited about it being prolonged, dry or hot, either one. So we will trend drier as we go deeper into July and into August. Even September will be drier yet, so we'll have a decrease in precipitation as time moves along, but we're not going to get into a lot of heat.
And the heat is what this crop needs. This crop that needs to mature quicker than it has in years past because it got planted so late. So when you look at that cooler weather pattern, are you worried about an early frost or freeze or even a normal frost or freeze this year?
I am concerned about the potential for an earlier frost and freeze date. Now, normal is certainly more likely, but there is a potential for that we could end up a little bit early, especially in the north. The Dakotas, more likely Nebraska and South Dakota over to the Great Lakes region, maybe Colorado and northwest Kansas. Those areas do have a higher potential for getting a little bit too cool.
So what are the chances we do have an early frost or freeze?
Right now I'd say it's a fairly good chance. The solar cycle tends to breed early frost freezes, especially when there's already a bias for cooler than normal conditions, and this lunar cycle that we're in, the 18-year cycle, is definitely promoting shots of cold air. So I do feel like the odds are fairly high, at least for the upper parts of the Midwest and Northern Plains. Like the lower parts of the region probably do okay.
All right, Drew, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Stay with us, and we'll have much more on Ag Day when we come back.
The IBM Watson Decision Platform for Agriculture, helping to feed a hungry world with the power of AI.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist Mike Hoffman here. And Mike, if we look at the root zone moisture index from last week, we can see it's still pretty wet in the middle of the country, but a little less so than it was a few weeks back.
Yeah, it is, and I think it'll be a little less so when the new one comes out early this week. But for now, it's still pretty wet across a good chunk of the country. Definitely from Texas on up into the Ohio Valley, most of the Northeast, back across the North Central Plains, and even into California and Nevada. But you can see there are some dry areas, the Southeast, and that's going to change probably as well when you see my forecast, and also the Southwest, Pacific Northwest, kind of dry. It's unusual for those folks, but definitely on the dry side, and that's showing up on the drought monitor as well in the far Northwest, also in parts of the Southeast. Like I said, though, our forecast is for wetter conditions as we head through this week for the Southeast. A little bit of dryness there, Four Corner region, and also the far northern plains. All right, here's the jet stream as we start the week. We have a ridge over the middle of the country. A little trough kind of brought slightly less hot air into the Great Lakes Northeast, mid-Atlantic states as we start the week, but that's probably going to return for a little while. Another trough by the middle of the week starting to dig into the Great Lakes, and by the end of it, it's digging into the Northeast as well, and that's going to bring a fairly decent shot of cooler air, not chilly by any stretch, but cooler air, and there's still more energy upstream that will probably dig in and keep things a little bit on the cool side. But temperatures this week from the Northeast to Texas, I'm going above normal, near normal for the Great Lakes, below normal for the northwestern plains, northern Rockies, and above normal in the west. Precipitation this week below normal, Ohio Valley, lower lakes, Texas, all the way through the west, above normal up through the northern plains, northwestern Great Lakes, and in the southeastern portions of the country. All right, let's go through the 90-day outlook. There's our July forecast, the rest of July anyway, above normal in the east and the west, below normal for the rest of July for the center of the country. August temperatures will shrink that down a little bit in the center with still above east and west, and more of the same for the east and west as we head through September, near normal for the center of the country. Precipitation above normal from the Tennessee Valley back through much of the Rockies, only below normal areas of far northeast and the far northwest. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Fresno, California, first of all, lots of sunshine and warm, high of 91. Copper Harbor, Michigan, partly sunny, comfortable, high about 71. And finally, Ocala, Florida, variably cloudy, a thunderstorm is possible, high about 90 degrees.
Coming up, if you're just using GPS to get around, you're really missing something, how one man is literally putting Ohio on the map. Plus, Machinery Pete.
Hey folks, it's summertime. Stay tuned. We're going to talk batwing mower prices.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
It's summer and all that rain means the grass is really growing. Machinery Pete looks at deals on what may be the ultimate mower.
Well folks, in the second quarter of 2019, we saw a 56.6% increase in search traffic to used hay and forage equipment at our machinerypete.com website. Now, no huge surprise here. I mean, second quarter, the weather's getting warmer. This type of equipment is in demand. But one trend I've noticed that correlates to the rise in search traffic on the auction market has been solid pricing on good used batwing mowers. Now, here's a picture of a 2018 John Deere MX-15 15-foot batwing that sold on a farm auction in north central Iowa June 28th and went for $10,600. Now folks, that's the third highest auction price I've ever seen on an MX-15. And earlier this year, on a pair of wholesale auctions out of southern states, we saw very similar pricing. Now here's a picture of an MX-15 that sold consignment auction in southwest Kentucky on February 22nd, and it went for almost the same money, $10,500. And the next month, on a consignment auction down in southeast Texas, this MX-15 sold for $10,000. Now, if you took the average of the last 9 John Deere MX-15s that I've seen sold at auction, that comes out to $8,872. And if we talk the retail side of things, well, the current average dealer ad price on an MX-15, $11,611. And oh, by the way, folks, if you're looking for a good used batwing mower, check out machinerypete.com. We got over 1,100 of them for sale today.
If you're still into old school navigation, come meet the man helping Ohio motorists find their way across the state.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
If your summer travel plans involve a road trip, you might have the need to pull out a paper map. Well, if you're in Ohio and holding an old school GPS, you've probably encountered the work of Bruce Hull. Like any other family,
my family and I, we always take road trips. I mean, we may just pick a weekend or just randomly just decide to go someplace.
Bruce Hull loves a good trip, and his are always guided by a paper map.
Technology is good for getting you from point A to point B. I mean, it's convenient, but you miss the big picture.
And helping motorists see the big picture is his day job.
It usually always comes down to showing what Ohio has to offer.
At 60, Hull has been injecting his own flair, handy information, and hidden a bit of his own family's history into Ohio's road maps for almost 2 decades.
I'll just put a map up on the wall and close my eyes and just walk over and touch it. And then wherever I touch, that's the part I'm going to look for things to do.
Hull's artistry has appeared on millions of maps, helping drivers navigate the state with the nation's 4th busiest highway system. He selects the images, the design, the paper, even the type of fold that's used.
The first map I was working on, the first one I had actually taken over was in 2001, and I was working on one of the panels, and it was our child seatbelt safety panel. And I was looking for stock pictures, and the ones I had found were kind of expensive. I mean, the cheapest one was $160.
Rather than spending the money, he took a picture of his 6-year-old daughter. She's been in every map since.
It's just, I don't know, it's cute to just, I don't know, have people point out like, hey, I found you in this like information center at this park because you're on the map. I'm like, oh, cool.
A personal flair for the millions of motorists making their own memories, mile by mile.
There's a lot of things when you're looking at your phone or you're relying on the GPS, you just don't see things like you would if you were looking at a map.
Very cool. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out there in farm country.